Oh, so now we're live. So let me try to get into it. I'm having some technical difficulties. Let's see.
When I found out we were going to have a baby, I was so excited. I was also full of anxiety and fear because I knew nothing about children or being a father. So I began learning. I took parenting classes, did research, got certifications, and most importantly, experienced mistakes that I learned from. And while there was a lot of information and communities for moms, there wasn't many resources for dads. And so I decided to take action.
We just cut off the commercial in the middle of it. We're having some technical difficulties, but that's because we're testing a bunch of things. I appreciate. Let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Jordan, good to see you. If you are joining us here, be sure to say where you're from, and then if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We got it. We did a live yesterday, went really well, and so we're doing it again. Just, that's what happens. So Jordan asked, does being high off marijuana affect me being a father? I feel smoking helps me be a better all-around dad. So I think that this is not something that somebody else can judge. I would imagine most people, this is just making an assumption, but I would imagine most people who do smoke it and are a father would believe that it does make them better because that's what they do. Whether it's relaxation, whether it's trying to make them more engaged and do that. So I don't know that I can make that decision for you or give you that advice. I personally don't do it and don't smoke. So, but for those that do, I think maybe it's a discussion about, the people around you and how they are affected. So that's not for me to determine, I can imagine that, like I said, the stress, maybe that there's some engagement, being present, and there's some things that may affect that, but that might be something for either a specialist in that area or a psychologist. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. Because I don't smoke, I it's hard for me to say. I have found, I think when my children were very little, I drank a lot more. And now looking back, that was to relax. It was to escape. It was to tolerate. It was all kinds of stuff. And at the time, I had thought that was better for me. And as I got, my kids got a little bit older, I just determined that it wasn't good for me. But that was for me. And also, as your children get even more, get even older, they start to see the patterns. And so you have to start making decisions about what it is that you want to teach them. And for some people, that's not a big deal. But for me, and responsibility and, having a responsible and healthy relationship with alcohol was an important thing to start teaching my children. So it's not that I wouldn't ever drink, but the responsibility, frequency, how it's done, that kind of stuff started becoming more top of mind. So I think if you are conscious about it, and kind of keep an attention about it, in other words, would you care if your children are 6 years old or 10 years old or whatever, and they know and they are learning somewhere else that it's bad for you or something, and they start having that conflict with you. Now, you might feel that it's perfectly okay, and there's a lot of people who do, so that's not for me to say. I think it's, yeah. I mean, I hey, you can get into a complete discussion, but I think, I think there's people who are for it and people who are against it. I would take the stance that for me, it's not a thing, but that doesn't mean that it's not for somebody else. So, I mean, and that's kind of my stance on a lot of things. It's kind of like to each his own. It's even with fathering, it's like I give advice, I give, experiences that I've had, but not everything applies to everybody, and people are in different situations. People have different beliefs, different philosophies. There are some things that I believe very strongly, but even with that, there are people who believe differently, and I may disagree, but there's still respect. And I think that that's something that we've kind of gotten away from, is the fact that you can disagree with somebody and still be respectful, still have a, respectful discussion about it. And yeah, I mean, it's like even with my friends or something, like we may have totally different opinions on things, whether politics, religion, all kinds of stuff. We can still be friends. So I feel like it's kind of like the same thing with that, with recreational use of drugs or alcohol or things like that. So I don't know, it's a long answer for a short question, but hopefully that helps. Guys, if you are joining us here, don't forget to support the channel. We really appreciate it. You can go to daduniversity.com/support. Become a member. You can pay what feels good. If you're a member, you get access to all of the courses that I've created. There's a private discussion forum. Very, very targeted videos as well. We've stripped down a lot of the fluff from videos and done that. So there's like 300 something videos. And then, or you can just make a one-time donation. That's cool too. Some people did that yesterday on the chat. That was greatly appreciated. And either way, supporting the channel, really appreciate that. And it really helps out. So any other questions? Chris, good to see you. Chris from Naples, how do you get your 3-year-old boy to go to the bathroom? That's a great question. I wasn't the one who did potty training, so I don't have a lot of experience in potty training. I know that my wife sat with our child for quite some time, spent like a week with him, diapers off, and just going and did it. For some kids, they're afraid. I know one of the things that we did that was helpful was we watched some videos on it, but also there was a book. There was a couple of books about it, little pamphlet-sized books on like Amazon. You can get them, but you could probably watch a video too, and it's a kid video, and it kind of shows them what it's all about and why it's okay and such. And I remember going through that, and that really helped. For our daughter just simply watched our son and went. And so I can't really give you much advice on that one. I apologize. So I don't know if that was much help, but I always like to say, if I don't have a true answer, I don't want to say it. I can tell you what we did from a dad perspective, but it's more of the experiences and the knowledge that I have that I want to make sure that I have that experience and knowledge before I share it. So yeah, if you're just joining us, let me know where you're from. Got some people yesterday that were from all over the world. It was kind of cool. It's just amazing that we can do this. What's happening with Dad University? We're making some videos, scripting, lots of suggestions on topics. We've gotten some suggestions through Instagram and even through through YouTube in the comments, and that's been really helpful. We've done 300 something more than that, 350 videos. And so, sometimes the topics that we think are important aren't necessarily top of mind for everybody. So I'm always, I always appreciate topic suggestions. And if you've got an issue that you want to solve, like those two that I may not have a good answer, but I also like to answer questions that I feel very strongly about. So what else is going on? Anybody else have questions? Throw them in the chat. Happy to answer if I can. And let me see what else we got. Also, too, I saw some stat that it was only like 25% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed. So, and another important thing is if you are not subscribed to the channel, it really helps us out. Subscribers tell the YouTube algorithm that people like you. And as a result of that, it means more videos watched, which then allows us more compensation, which allows us to do more videos, etc. So, if you're not going to donate or become a member, then it is really helpful for you to at least subscribe. Hey, Jonathan, good to see you from SoCal. Right on. When did you introduce your kids to TV or videos on YouTube? So my daughter, YouTube, let's see. We allowed them to watch some TV when they were young, very limited, 30 minutes here, an hour there. A lot of it, we tried to make it educational. But they did not have access to computers really until quarantine. Like, they had their school computer, which, we weren't able to really police that, but the school polices that. But they didn't have their own computers, like own laptops or phones or so. So they were 9 and 11 around there. My son is now 14. He has a phone with limitations. And then my daughter is 12 and she does not have a phone. So we are delaying until 13. We are delaying as long as possible. Yeah, I mean, TV they can watch. They watch movies and things. We don't limit it as much. And they do, and my daughter now has a computer and they watch YouTube videos and such. So yeah, I mean, probably until quarantine, where we were kind of forced to get them computers in order to do things with the school and Zooms and stuff, it sped up our technology, the technology use in our household by a couple of years, because we had not planned on doing that. Trying to keep them off. I watch now a lot of more YouTube. I don't really watch TV anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that there can be some great things on it. We're on it. And I think there's some educational pieces. There is definitely a lot of junk. And so, and as a child gets older, they have their own devices. It's kind of tough. So I would say that there's not necessarily an age, but delay it as long as you can and limit the use as much as you can. So Chris, why limit them? Technology is the future. Totally agree. But the brain, if you read some studies, they're still getting evidence on this, and I've read some. I'm not an expert in this area, but my understanding too is that there's a lot of technology changes the synapses of your brain. And I can tell you firsthand, in just watching my children use technology, it can affect their personalities, it can affect their attention spans and such. So I'm not saying technology is bad. It's just as their brains develop, they're able to use it in a different and more responsible way. So as an example, letting them on social media or really quick videos absolutely changes their attention span in their brain. And it's now come out that, they do not want people under 13 using like TikTok or anything. And there's reasons for that. It's addictive. So we can talk about social media. We can talk about technology. I don't necessarily think that, quote, technology is that bad. But there is some studies too that talk about the eyesight and, the focusing and things like that. I think it's being cautious. I don't think it's just free for all. It's just, and that's my own personal opinion. People do what they want, but it's certainly not a free for all in our house. And I get to make that rule. And, they use technology quite a bit. They use it at school. They have it at home. So I don't think there's any shortage of technology. So I hope that answers the question. But hey, and if your house, if everyone, I also think that there's some aspects too of using, especially devices, they become a substitute for social interaction. And I'm not just romanticizing the past of like, hey, this is how it used to be. But I see it firsthand when we are on our devices and, together in a room, there is much less interaction. And as a father, I don't like that. So we have rules like there's no, especially when other people are at the table or in the room, we don't have technology. You're not watching videos unless it is some specific thing that, we okay. But like no phones at the dinner table. Like I said, if there's somebody else sitting with you, you don't have your phone on. And I've talked now to my children, unless we're going for like a car ride and, we're going somewhere and, it's boring or something. But if it's just myself and my child. In fact, this just happened yesterday. It's like, hey, I'd rather have a conversation, than us being on the phones. And, that's my own personal preference. I maybe am a little bit older, but I do think if I didn't, use a phone for technology, for work and other things, I don't know that I would want to use it. I'm not a fan of everything. YOLO Marcus, I'm not going to answer that question. But I appreciate that. Chris. Yeah, so Chris, you said, well, let's say that we were addicted to books. As long as you use things for good, there's always good and there's always bad. Yes, totally agree. But I would say the same thing, that if I had a child that was their face was always buried in a book, that I would be just as concerned. And I think that there's balance in that. The child's constantly looking at a book. It means that they're not interacting with others. They're not playing outside, which is healthy. That's proven science, getting vitamin D and playing outside and interacting with other children, making those kinds of choices every once in a while in moderation, it's fine. But if you had a child that was severely addicted to books, yeah, I wouldn't want my child doing that either, even if it was, that's considered positive. Not to say that, reading all the time is bad. It's a good thing. It enhances your intelligence. But as an example, children come to our front door, they want to play, and my child would say, no, I'm reading. Well, if they've just started reading, sure. But if they've been reading for hours and they're deciding not to play with other kids, I might be concerned if that was happening all of the time. Once in a while, fine. Like you said, everything has positives and negatives. And so I think as parents, we just kind of moderate that, and if your children are healthy in other ways, and this was something also that was brought to my attention, like as the example with technology, it's because my son got into gaming. And my son was doing really well in school, plays sports, hanging out with friends, eating well, whatever. If those other things are being done, then yeah, the technology in the gaming is probably not that big of a deal. But if the child was gaming, they're not getting exercise. They're not interacting with friends. They're not doing their homework. Then that becomes a different conversation. So I think you just, it's all about the balance and or I say harmony more, of just making sure that the other things are going well. And as parents, that's what we want. We want sort of this well-roundedness. So I think so. Any other questions? Appreciate everybody who's coming in asking questions. Again, if you it'd be great if you could support the channel, and you can do that by going to daduniversity.com/support. You can become a member and support it that way. And if you do that, if you can get the courses, get access to all the courses, videos, discussions, etc. Or you can just do a one-time payment or a one-time donation. Helps us do videos like this, helps us with camera, helps us with everything. I don't know if you can see the microphone. So Chris has asked, so you think that's all because you have limited social media and gaming? No, I don't think so, that's the reason. Like the reason he's good in school and sports. No, I just think as a parent, my philosophy, which could be different than anyone else's, and you can have that one, is I like the idea when they're young, especially, to be somewhat well-rounded. And for me, that definition might be different for somebody than somebody else. Let's say a dad is really into gaming. Well, then they probably don't mind that their child games a lot. But for me, I try to get outside on occasion. But I exercise every day. I eat really well. I try to keep in contact with my friends. I try to interact with my family. I work hard. And so for me, this is my importance. A priority for me has always been to be well-rounded. That's something that I have always valued. In other words, having this sort of harmony of all the different things in my life. Now, at times I have had to sacrifice that. I've run businesses. I've done this, staying up late and, creating courses and then missing dinner with my family, whatever. So I don't think that, my son or daughter being good in school is a result of them not gaming or such. But I do think it is a result, the discipline that they have and the manners that they have, the other things. I will take credit for that as well. My wife should, very much so, because we've put in a tremendous amount of work. And so it's funny. People will often say, oh, they're such a good kid, and yes, there are situations where you might have a good kid that didn't have great parenting or whatever. But I know how much time my wife and myself have put in to interacting with our children and being good parents, if you will. We mess up just like everybody else, but making that effort to be good, that I think that's why my children are like that. The same thing that for me as a child, I did well in school, was well-rounded, was nice to people, was moral. That wasn't because of me. It wasn't a lot of the choices I made. That was how my parents brought me up. And so I give credit to my parents for that. It's not something that I take credit for. Certainly as you get older and you start making your own decisions, but I had amazing parents, and as a result of that, I think that I was lucky I excelled in school, and I had good discipline, I had good habits, I took care of myself. These were all things that were instilled in me. And so is there some negative that came with that? Certainly. Absolutely. I'm going on a rambling, but anxiety and perfectionism and all these other things. But overall, I think that my child, or both of my children, are the way they are. Certainly some of it is just nature, but a lot of it is nurture. You put kids in an environment where they are really loved, really supported. We treat our children with respect, and as a result of that, you try to have children that are good contributing members of society. Are they going to mess up? Yes. And if they mess up, guess what? Part of that's on me. If my children do really bad things, part of that is on myself and my wife. We didn't teach them something, or, it's not all of it, but certainly a lot of it. Yeah. Chris, I think you might like arguing for the sake of arguing, but I appreciate the feedback. Jumbo, it's a lot of nurture. Yes, it is. So if anybody has any other questions, certainly throw them in the chat. Happy to talk to. I don't want to get too into a rabbit hole too deep. Yesterday we had some interesting questions about, introducing your children introducing your children to another child. I get some pet questions recently. Interesting how to introduce to your pet. But if you guys have some topics that you want to see some videos on, throw it in the chat. And if you're watching this on replay, still value those comments of what it is that you want to see. But we're running out of time here. I got to get going. I actually have to go pick up my child. So any last words? If you guys have any questions, throw them in there. If not, don't forget to support the channel, daduniversity.com/support. And we appreciate that. Become a member. Maybe contribution. You can donate. We appreciate that as well. Chris, no worries. I appreciate you. I'm not trying to make conflict. I know sometimes this chat box is a little bit difficult to understand. Jumbo, maybe this is the last one. Technology is evolving too quickly. How are we expected to keep up? Yeah, I don't know. For my career, I've been in the technology field of, search engines and online marketing, and that has evolved and changed, and you just have to learn. And, you learn and adapt, and things change. It's the same thing as the other, we were talking about with technology. I will say, though, that just because everybody is doing it and it's changing doesn't mean that it's wonderful. That's the direction people are going, or that's the direction of things. It doesn't mean that it's great, and you have to be careful of that. There's positives and negatives to everything. So I think keeping up with technology is just, constantly learning. I mean, look at even myself. I'm older, and, we're learning, and we're testing online streaming, and all of this stuff with YouTube and stuff. Like this, I'm not an expert at this until I've done it 100 times. When I made my first video, I had lights falling down. I had my lighting was so horrible. My sound, I was videoing on my phone, and trying to do stuff. And it's basically just repetition, and I think that a lot of things are like that, where you have to do, and parenting is like that. You have a brand new child. It's like you're not an expert in the beginning. When your child is 10, 15 years old, you've now done certain things a lot of times, but guess what? New stuff comes up. I have a child that's 14 and a child that's 12. Now we're in teen years. There's all new stuff coming up. I was just starting to get the hang of the younger kid things that, you deal with, and now it's all new. So that's what's... Yeah, I mean, technologies with AI, you're not, and then virtual reality, you're not going to have to go anywhere. But I'm not going to be around for that, so we'll see. Unless they start allowing us to live forever too, then we're in trouble. It's going to be really crowded here. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll be doing more of these lives, and hopefully also you'll see some more videos coming soon. And with that, I want to just say thank you. I appreciate every single one of you, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
When I found out we were going to have a baby, I was so excited. I was also full of anxiety and fear because I knew nothing about children or being a father. So I began learning. I took parenting classes, did research, got certifications, and most importantly, experienced mistakes that I learned from. And while there was a lot of information and communities for moms, there wasn't many resources for dads. And so I decided to take action and began building Dad University. Dad University is a one-of-a-kind educational platform for dads to help you achieve your full potential as a father. We help you go from overwhelmed and confused to calm and confident father with our courses or videos, live broadcasts, support forum, and more. When you become a member, you get unlimited access to everything. The pricing for our monthly membership is pay what feels good. Education, the community, the tools that you will get here are priceless. But we also understand that everyone values them differently. And as such, we give you the choice of what you want to pay. How much is peace of mind worth to you? Click on Become a Member and get started today.